My mother told me not to come for Christmas, claiming I would embarrass them in front of my sister's upper-class boyfriend. My sister called me a nobody. I decided to show up anyway. They never expected their guest of honor was my new employee. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The call came on a Tuesday, which was, in itself, an insult. It was a cold, miserable evening, the kind where the rain can't decide if it wants to be sleet, and the wind sounds like it's personally offended by your windows. I was just starting to feel human again. I'd been laid flat by the worst flu of my adult life, a vicious, fever-drenched ordeal that had lasted 2 full weeks. My muscles still ached, my head felt packed with cotton, and my apartment was a testament to survival, mugs of cold tea, empty tissue boxes, and a weighted blanket I'd barely emerged from. I was looking at my calendar, planning my flight home for Christmas, which was only 10 days away. I was actually looking forward to it. I'd been working 80-hour weeks for months, launching a new sustainable tech initiative at my firm, and the idea of 2 weeks in my childhood home, even with my family's quirks, sounded like a reprieve. I wanted my mom's bad casseroles and my dad's predictable stories. My phone lit up on the coffee table. It wasn't just one name, it was a group video call. Mom, Dad, Claire. A prickle of anxiety, sharp and familiar, cut through the flu fog. A group call was never good. It was for interventions, it was for announcements, it was for ambushes. I swiped to answer, forcing a smile onto my face. Hi, everyone, I was just. Scarlett, my mother's Margaret's voice was thin, tight. She wasn't smiling. She was sitting on the formal living room sofa, the one nobody was ever allowed to sit on. My father, Richard, was beside her, looking stiffly at a spot just past the camera. My younger sister, Claire, was lounging in the armchair, phone in hand, looking bored. Mom, is everything okay? My voice sounded raspy from the flu. Scarlett, dear, Mom began, using the tone that always preceded bad news. We need to talk about Christmas. I pulled the blanket tighter. Okay, what's wrong? Did something happen? My father cleared his throat, still not looking at me. Your mother and we've been talking, and with Claire's situation, we've decided it's just not a good year for you to come home. The words were so cold, so sterile that they didn't compute. Not come home? What do you mean? I've already got my presents wrapped. My sister, Claire, let out an exasperated sigh, loud enough for the microphone to catch. Oh, Mom, just tell her. Stop trying to be nice about it. She sat up, her perfectly made-up face filling her little video window. Look, Scarlett, I'm bringing my new boyfriend Julian home, and he's important. I blinked, the cotton in my head feeling denser. Important, okay. That's great, Claire. I'm looking forward to meeting him. No, you don't understand, Claire snapped, her voice dripping with the kind of condescension she'd perfected in high school. He's actually important. He's not like, well, anyone you know. My father finally spoke up, his voice gruff and uncomfortable. He's from a different class, Scarlett, a different world. His family is very prominent. We don't want to embarrass ourselves. The room tilted, the sleet hammered against the glass. Embarrass yourselves? My voice was barely a whisper. What does that have to do with me? This time, it was Claire who delivered the final, precise strike. She sneered, a perfect, ugly twist of her lips. Julian is used to a certain caliber of person, Scarlett. He moves in circles you just wouldn't understand. He doesn't like being around, nobodies. Nobodies. The word hung in the air, echoing in the sterile silence of my apartment. Nobody. And let's be honest, Claire continued, warming to her topic, your little office job is just sad. We don't want him asking what you do and have to make something up. It's just easier if you're not here. I looked to my mother. Her face was a mask of strained politeness. It's just for this 1 year, dear, she said, her voice bright and brittle. This is very important for Claire. Julian could be the one. We're having him for the entire Christmas week, and we just want everything to be perfect. You understand?" I looked at my father. He was inspecting his fingernails. I couldn't breathe. I, Scarlett Vance, 36 years old, founder and CEO of Terra Global Strategies, a firm that consulted on sustainable technology for half the Fortune 100, was a nobody. I, who had quietly paid off the mortgage on the very house they were sitting in. I, who had funded Claire's vlogging career for 3 years, including the new camera, the apartment, and the car. I, who subsidized my parents' comfortable early retirement, which they attributed to my father's shrewd investments. I was an embarrassment. My little office job was sad. "I see," I managed to say. "The flu, the fever, the body aches. None of it compared to the profound, icy chill that was spreading from my chest outward." "Good," Margaret said, relief flooding her face. "I knew you'd understand. You were always the practical one. We'll make it up to you. Maybe we can do a dinner in February." "Maybe," I said. "Great, well, we have to go. We're picking out a new centerpiece for the table. Julian is used to a very high standard." The call ended. The screen went black. I sat there for a long time, listening to the rain and the hollow buzz of the phone. The beautiful, neatly wrapped presents I'd spent weeks picking out were stacked by my door. I felt the fever spiking again, but this was different. The rejection wasn't just a change of plans, it was a verdict. And the betrayal felt far more toxic than the fever I'd just broken. For the first few hours, I was just numb. I curled up under the blanket and stared at the dark city skyline. The pain of the flu had been a physical, understandable thing. This was a deeper sickness. This was a hollowing out. Nobody's. A different class. We don't want to embarrass ourselves. The phrases played on a loop, each one a fresh sting. I thought about my life, the one they knew nothing about. I had chosen anonymity. When I founded Terra Global Strategies, I'd done it quietly. I'd built it from my spare bedroom, coding and designing sustainable systems until my fingers were numb. I'd taken the risks, worked the 80-hour weeks, and built an empire. I kept my name off the press releases. I let my COO be the public face. I lived in a comfortable, elegant, but understated apartment. I drove a reliable sedan. I wore quiet, well-made clothes that Claire would call boring. Why? Because I had seen what wealth did to people. And because, on some deep, childish level, I wanted my family to love me, just Scarlett. The practical one, the boring one, I didn't want them to love S. Vance, CEO. It seemed I had failed on both counts. They didn't love just Scarlett. They were ashamed of her. The next day, the numbness gave way to a cold, simmering anger. I felt stronger. The flu was receding, and this new, sharp resolve was taking its place. I had to try one more time. I had to be sure. This couldn't be real. I sent a simple text to my mother. "Mom, I don't understand. I can't believe you do this. Please just tell me what's really going on." I watched the phone. The 3 little dots appeared, then vanished, appeared, then vanished. She was typing, deleting, retyping. Finally, a message came through. "Margaret text, Scarlett, you're making this very difficult. You're being selfish. Claire deserves this. Julian is a wonderful man from an excellent family, and this is her one chance to finally be happy. Your father and I support her. Please don't ruin this for her." Selfish. The accusation was so profoundly, spectacularly unjust that I almost laughed. I was being selfish. I, who had just last month wired Claire $5,000 for a vlogging trip to Bali that she'd never taken. I, who had paid for my father's emergency root canal, all $6,000 of it, last spring. I, who had never asked for a single thing in return except to be present at Christmas. The coldness of my mother's text, her immediate pivot to painting me as the aggressor, was the final confirmation. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a calculated decision. They were trading me for a social upgrade. I sat at my desk, my work laptop open. My inbox was flooded with year-end reports, contracts, and market projections. And then I saw it. An email chain from my executive assistant. Subject, Ray. Onboarding complete. Julian Rutherford, CFO. My blood went still. Julian. It couldn't be. Julian was a common name, but Rutherford, from an excellent family, important. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I opened our secure HR portal. I typed in the name. And there he was. Julian Rutherford, age 37, poached from our biggest competitor, my new high-profile chief financial officer. I had hired him myself. I had spent the last 2 months in grueling negotiations with him, finally landing him with a compensation package that was, frankly, staggering. He was brilliant. He was a shark. He was, without a doubt, the most important hire I had made all year. But here was the crucial detail. We had never met in person. My role as the anonymous CEO meant that all high-level interviews were conducted via secure video calls. He knew me only as S. Vance, a powerful, slightly intimidating, and I hoped, respected figure who appeared in a professionally lit home office, my background a stark, impressive wall of books and awards. He had never seen me like this, sick, pale, and wrapped in a fuzzy blanket. He had never heard anyone call me Scarlet. My family, my arrogant, foolish, status-obsessed family, they were trying to impress my new CFO. They were uninviting me to impress my own employee. A slow, cold smile spread across my face. The hurt was still there, a deep, heavy stone in my gut, but it was now joined by something else. A sharp, clear, strategic focus. The kind of focus I used when I was about to win a difficult negotiation. They were so worried about my status. They were so desperate to present their own. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. They had no idea who he was. And more importantly, they had no idea who I am. The memory was so clear, it could have been yesterday. It was my 30th birthday. I had just, that very morning, landed the Terra Global contract with the city of Stockholm. It was our first major international deal. It was worth millions. It was the moment I knew my company was going to succeed. I was ecstatic, practically vibrating with adrenaline and joy. I called home, my hand shaking as I dialed, desperate to share the news. My mother, Margaret, picked up. "Oh, hello, Scarlett. Is everything all right?" "Everything is amazing, Mom. You won't believe what just." "Scarlett, I can't talk," she cut me off, her voice a strained whisper. "It's your sister. It's a crisis." My joy evaporated. "Claire, what's wrong? Is she hurt?" "She just got dumped. By that lovely boy, Alex. She's heartbroken, absolutely devastated. She won't come out of her room." My father, Richard, got on the line. "Your sister needs us, Scarlett. This is a real-life problem. That office stuff of yours can wait. We have to focus on what's important." I remember standing in my tiny office, the signed contract on my desk, and feeling about 2 inches tall. My office stuff. My life's work. I canceled the small celebration I had planned with my team. I booked a flight. I spent my 30th birthday on my parents' sofa, listening to Claire sob hysterically over a guy she had been dating for exactly 3 weeks. I ended up taking both Claire and my mother to a luxury spa for a healing weekend. I paid for it. They never asked, not once, what my amazing news had been. That was the dynamic. It had always been the dynamic. Claire was the sparkling one. She was the outgoing one, the charming one. She was also deeply, profoundly insecure and monumentally lazy. She had failed out of 2 different college programs before deciding she was going to be a lifestyle vlogger. Her profession was a carefully curated Instagram feed of her posing with cocktails, on beaches, or in designer clothes, all funded by her boring sister via our parents. My parents enabled her, dazzled by her superficial charm and terrified of her emotional outbursts. I was the serious one, the practical one, the dull one. I was the one who was good with numbers, the one who was so responsible. My reliability had become my curse. I was not a person to them. I was a utility, a safety net, an ATM that never asked questions. And I had let them. For years, I had let them. I thought about the last time I'd been home for Thanksgiving. Claire had brought her new vlogging camera, the one I paid for, and was filming everything. "We just have to get this shot. Julian is going to love my content," she'd trilled. She hadn't mentioned his name then, just my new man. She had turned the camera on me. I was sitting by the fire, reading a book on quantum computing. "And here's my sister, Scarlett," she'd announced to her phone. "Still single, still reading, nerd books." She'd giggled, a high, tinkling sound. "God, Scarlett, your clothes. Don't you ever buy anything new? You look like you shop at a library." I'd looked down at my outfit. It was a simple, dark gray cashmere turtleneck and jeans. The turtleneck alone cost more than her entire fast fashion outfit, but it had no logo. It was quiet. "I like to be comfortable, Claire," ID said, not looking up. "So boring," she'd whispered, loud enough for me to hear, before turning the camera to my father. "Daddy, tell my followers how proud you are of your influencer daughter." The disingenuousness of it all was suffocating. Their lives were a performance. They were obsessed with appearing wealthy, with seeming important. They had no interest in the actual, quiet, difficult work of being successful. They just wanted the props. And now they had the ultimate prop, Julian Rutherford. They saw him as their ticket to the different class they so craved. They thought that by association, they would become important. And to secure that association, they needed to cut out the one part of their lives that didn't fit the new narrative. Me, the nobody, the sad office worker, the walking, talking reminder of a lower class they were desperate to escape. The cruelty was the point. It wasn't enough to just uninvite me. They had to degrade me. They had to justify their decision by tearing me down, by reassuring each other that I was, in fact, an embarrassment. "He doesn't like being around. Nobodies." That was Claire's voice, but the sentiment was shared. It was the family motto. I closed my laptop. The anger I felt was so pure, so cold, it was almost calming. The fog of the flu was gone. My head was completely, beautifully clear. They had mistaken my quietness for weakness. They had mistaken my generosity for stupidity. They were about to learn, in the most public way possible, just how wrong they were. The shift inside me was palpable. The hurt didn't vanish. It was a deep, permanent bruise, but it was no longer paralyzing. It had crystallized into resolve. For days, I'd felt like a victim. Now, I felt like a CEO. I stopped replaying their insults and started forming a strategy. My old plan had been to fly home, stay in my childhood room, and pretend to be the dull daughter. My new plan was different. I was not going to be just Scarlett this Christmas. I went to my laptop. I wasn't just investigating Julian, I was reevaluating him. I had his entire HR file. I'd read it before, of course, but now I was reading it with new eyes. He wasn't old money, as my family desperately believed. He was the opposite. His file told a story of fierce, grinding ambition. He'd grown up in a working-class neighborhood. His father was a mechanic, his mother a teacher's aide. He'd gotten to the Ivy League on a full academic scholarship. He declawed his way up the corporate ladder at our competitor with sheer talent and a relentless work ethic. The personal statement in his application packet included a line I'd skimmed over at the time, but which now leapt off the page. "I have no patience for unearned arrogance or those who mistake privilege for merit." My sister, the aspiring influencer who had never worked a real day in her life, had snagged a self-made man who despised everything she stood for. The family's entire plan was built on a lie. They were pretending to be the very upper class, snobs that a man like Julian would, in all likelihood, loathe. They were trying to impress him with their prominence, a prominence I had secretly purchased for them. The clever trap wasn't something I needed to build. It was already there, ticking. The truth was the trap. My original decision had been to just show up, but now I saw that wasn't enough. I wasn't just going to arrive. I was going to arrive. I made 2 calls. The first was to my executive assistant, Maria. "Maria, I need you to book me a suite at the Four Seasons downtown, near my parents' place, from the 24th through the 26th. The Four Seasons, Ms. Vance, not. At home, Maria was the only person on earth who knew the full, contradictory details of my life. No, Maria, not at home, and I need a car service, not a taxi. The best one you can find, a black S-Class. It will pick me up at 11:30 a.m. on Christmas Day. Understood, Ms. Vance. The second call was to my company's legal department. I spoke to our head of internal finance. David, I said, I need you to draw up a full accounting of the Vance Family Trust. Yes, the discretionary one. I want a complete, itemized list of all expenditures for the last 5 years. Mortgage payments, cash transfers, medical bills, everything. And I want it notarized. I'll need a hard copy by Monday. He didn't ask why. He just said, yes, Ms. Vance. I then went online and looked at my flight. I was supposed to fly in on the 23rd. I canceled it. I booked a new flight, first class, arriving at 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve. I felt a pang of something, guilt, sadness. It was the end of an era, the end of pretending. I was done being their secret. I was done being their shame. I looked at the stack of gifts I'd bought for them, the expensive watch for my father, the rare, first edition book of poetry for my mother, the top-of-the-line vlogging drone for Claire. I carefully unwrapped the drone. I put it back in its box. I rewrapped my father's watch and my mother's book. Then I found a simple, elegant gift bag. Into it, I placed the notarized, leather-bound folder of financial statements that David was preparing. That would be my gift to the family. The gifts for my parents, I'd give them to my driver. A new text from Claire lit up my phone. Claire text, just confirming you're not coming. Julian is so excited, and I'm wearing a new dress. It would be just like you to show up and ruin it by being all mopey. I typed back a single, simple reply. I wouldn't miss it for the world. See you tomorrow. The scene receipt appeared instantly. The 3 dots began to dance frantically. I put my phone on silent and tossed it in my bag. The trap was set. Now I just had to let them walk into it. The frantic call. Started an hour before I boarded my flight on Christmas Eve. I let them all go to voicemail. Voicemail 1, Mom, high-pitched, panicky. Scarlett, what did you mean by that text? You can't be serious. You cannot come here. I am forbidding you from coming to this house. Julian is here. You will ruin everything. Voicemail 2, Claire, whispering, furious. I swear, Scarlett, if you show up here tomorrow, I will have you arrested. I'm not kidding. You are trying to sabotage me because you're a jealous, pathetic nobody. Stay away. Voicemail 3, Dad, gruff, angry. Scarlett, I don't know what game you're playing, but your mother is in tears. You have ruined Christmas Eve with this stunt. This threat, you're a bitter, jealous woman. Do not come here tomorrow, I mean it. We won't let you in. The finality of it was absolute. They hadn't just uninvited me, they had now actively barred me. They called me a liar, pathetic, and bitter. The love I'd thought was conditional, it wasn't there at all. I landed at 8 p.m. The city was beautiful, draped in festive lights. I bypassed the chaos of the taxi line and stepped into the warm, quiet interior of the town car that was waiting for me. I checked into my suite at the Four Seasons. It was spacious, beautiful, and looked out over the glittering city park. It was also completely, painfully empty. I ordered room service and opened my laptop. I didn't sleep. I worked. I finalized the new Q1 budget and approved the press release for our Singapore expansion. At 10 p.m., my work phone pinged. It was an email from Julian Rutherford, my new CFO. Subject, Merry Christmas. Message, Ms. Vance, I just wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas. I'm settling in well, and I'm incredibly excited about the work we're going to do in the new year. Thank you again for this opportunity. I won't let you down. Julian. I stared at the message. Settling in well. He was, at that very moment, in my parents' house. He was probably drinking my father's good whiskey and eating my mother's hors d'oeuvres. He was settling in with the family that was, at that exact same time, leaving me furious voicemails, forbidding me from entering their home. I typed a brief reply. Merry Christmas to you as well, Julian. I look forward to a very productive year. S. Vance. This was the first confrontation, the one they were having with themselves. I imagined the scene. Claire must have gotten my text. She would be in a panic, but she wouldn't dare tell Julian the truth. She wouldn't say, "My sister, the one we uninvited, might be your new boss." Why? Because her entire relationship with him was built on the lie that she was the impressive one, that her family was upper class. I imagined her cornered. She would be forced to double down. She would tell Julian, "Oh, my sister is just difficult, she's very unstable. She might show up and make a scene. She's always been jealous of me." She would paint me as the crazy, failed sister, and she would tell my parents to be ready. They would be a united front of lies. My phone rang again. A new number. I let it go to voicemail. Voicemail 4, Claire, voice cracking, trying to sound strong. I told Julian all about you, about how you're struggling. He understands. He said it's sad, but that families are complicated. So don't bother, Scarlett. He already knows you're a mess. We're all on the same page. Just leave us alone. I almost felt a pang of pity for her. She was in so far over her head. She had no idea what she was doing. She was trying to play chess with a grandmaster, and she'd just put her own king in check. He already knows you're a mess. I saved the voicemail. The trap wasn't just set, it was baited, and they had taken it hook, line, and sinker. I slept for 2 hours. I woke up at 7 a.m. on Christmas morning, alone in a hotel room. I took a long, hot shower. I put on a simple, elegant, dark green cashmere dress. It was expensive, but it had no label. It was the kind of dress Claire would call boring. I put on minimal makeup, pulled my hair back, and slipped on a pair of simple diamond earrings. I looked in the mirror. I didn't see a victim. I didn't see a nobody. I saw S. Vance, and it was time to go to work. At 11:15 a.m., my car service arrived. The driver, a professional man in a dark suit, held the door for me. I placed the 2 beautifully wrapped gifts, the watch for my father, the book for my mother, on the seat beside me. In my hand, I held a simple, tasteful holiday gift bag. Inside was the leather-bound, notarized report from my legal department. The drive to my parents' house was surreal. This was the route I had taken every Christmas of my life. But instead of arriving in a rattling airport taxi, filled with excitement, I was arriving in a black Mercedes S-Class, feeling like a general heading into battle. As we turned onto their street, I could see the house. It was decorated, lights twee. Ankling, and parked in the driveway right behind my father's car, was a sleek, silver sports car. Julian's, no doubt. My family was on high alert. I knew that from the voicemails. They were expecting crazy, mopey Scarlett to show up in her sad clothes and make a scene. They had probably been up all night, rehearsing their lines, united in their story of my instability. Claire's last voicemail was the irrefutable proof I needed. She hadn't just lied, she had slandered me to my new CFO. She hadn't just tried to protect her fantasy, she had actively tried to damage my reputation with a man who was crucial to my company. This was no longer just a family drama. This was a corporate liability. The car pulled up to the curb. I sat for a moment, gathering myself. The driver came around and opened my door. "Would you like me to wait, ma'am?" he asked. "Yes, please," I said. "I don't believe I'll be long." I walked up the stone path. The door opened before I even had a chance to ring the bell. My mother, Margaret, was standing there. She was wearing a new, expensive-looking red dress. Her face, which had been smiling, no doubt expecting a different guest, collapsed into a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. "Scarlett," her voice was a low hiss. You cannot be here. I forbade you. I told you." "Hello, Mom," I said, my voice calm and even. "I'm just dropping off gifts. I won't stay long." "Gifts? We don't want your—" "Who is it?" Claire's voice trilled from inside. "Is that the caterer? Julian is starving." Claire appeared in the hallway, wearing a glittery gold dress that was inappropriate for 11:30 a.m. When she saw me, her face went white under its heavy layer of foundation. Get out, she seethed. Mom, tell her to leave. You are not welcome here, Scarlett. My father, Richard, appeared behind them, his face a thundercloud. I told you not to come. You are embarrassing us. You are ruining Christmas. Get off my property. Embarrassing you, I said, still calm. I'm just standing in the doorway. I promise I'll be gone in a minute. It's just my sister, Claire said, her voice suddenly, falsely sweet. She was speaking over her shoulder to someone in the living room. The one I told you about, the difficult one, she's just so jealous. She's having a bit of an episode. She was performing for him. And that's when I stepped past my mother, into the foyer. The house was warm. It smelled of pine and roasting turkey. And there, standing by the beautifully decorated Christmas tree, holding a glass of champagne, was Julian Rutherford. He was wearing a tailored blazer, looking every inch the high-powered executive. He looked up, a polite, strained, "I'm so sorry your family is crazy" smile fixed on his face, ready to be introduced to his girlfriend's nobody sister. I met his gaze. And I watched as, in real time, his entire world came crashing down. Julian's polite smile didn't just fade, it evaporated. His glass stopped halfway to his mouth. The blood drained from his face, leaving him a chalky white. His eyes widened, first in confusion, then in dawning, abject horror. He froze, a perfect statue of disbelief, staring at me as if he'd seen a ghost. My family, standing in the doorway, didn't notice. They were still focused on me, their intruder. "Scarlett, I am not going to tell you again," my father boomed, stepping toward me. "Boss." Julian's voice was barely a whisper, but in the tension-filled hallway, it sounded like a cannon shot. My father stopped. Claire and Margaret froze. They all turned to look at Julian. He was still staring at me, his glass trembling slightly. "Boss," he said again, louder this time, his voice cracking with confusion. "Ms. Vance, what? What are you doing here?" The silence that fell was absolute. It was so total, so heavy, I could hear the faint ting of an ornament settling on the tree. My mother, my father, my sister. They swiveled their heads back to me, their expressions identical, slack-jawed, uncomprehending shock. It was Claire who broke the spell. She let out a high-pitched, hysterical laugh. "What? Julian, what did you just call her? Don't be ridiculous, this is just Scarlett." She waved a dismissive hand. "My sister, the one I told you about." Julian ignored her. He was standing straight now, all professional deference and panic. He looked from me to Claire and back to me. "Ms. Vance, I had no idea. I mean," Claire said her sister was. She said. "She said I was struggling," I offered, my voice quiet, but it carried in the dead silence. "That I was a mess, that I was a nobody." Julian's face went from pale to a deep, mortified red. Yes, Ms. Vance, "Claire," my mother whispered, grabbing my sister's arm. "What is he talking about? Why is he calling her boss?" "He's wrong," Claire shrieked, her eyes wild. He's confused. Tell them, Scarlett. Tell them you're lying. Tell T. You're just a secretary or something." This was the moment. All the years of being the dull one, the practical one, the family ATM, the embarrassment. It all ended here. "I'm not a secretary, Claire," I said, my voice cutting through her panic. "I am not lying. I have never lied. You just never bothered to listen." I turned to my stunned parents. "I founded Terra Global Strategies 8 years ago. My boring office job is running a multinational sustainable technology firm. A corporation, Julian," I said, turning to him, "that I believe you're finding quite profitable." Julian nodded, swallowing hard. "Incredibly, Ms. Vance, yes." "Julian is my new chief financial officer," I explained to my shell-shocked family. "I hired him. He is my employee." "No," Margaret whispered, shaking her head. "No, that's not possible. Richard, she's lying." My father just stared at me, his face ashen. He looked like he'd been punched. "I let you believe what you wanted," I continued, my voice steady, though my heart was hammering. "It was easier. I let you think Dad's shrewd investments paid for your retirement. I paid for it. I paid off the mortgage on this house, Dad. That matured investment you were so proud of, that was me. I turned to Claire, who was slowly backing away as if I were holding a weapon. Your vlogging trips, Claire, your apartment, your car, that new sports car Julian is so impressed with, all of it came from me. The nobody. I held up the holiday gift bag. I was going to give you this. It's a full, notarized accounting of every dollar I've spent on this family for the last 5 years. I suppose you can consider it a final invoice. Margaret was holding onto the doorframe, white-knuckled. Richard looked sick. And Claire just crumbled. No, 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 no. Julian, who had been watching this with a look of dawning, cold disgust, finally spoke. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Claire. You told me she was sad, he said, his voice low and dangerous. You said your family was, that you were. You lied to me about everything. Julian, no, Claire sobbed, rushing toward him. Julian, wait, I can explain. She's twisting it. She's always been jealous. He flinched as she tried to grab his arm. Twisting what? He snapped. That your sister is my CEO? That you've been living off her generosity while you and your parents call her an embarrassment behind her back? That you'd uninvite your own sister to Christmas to? What? To impress me with a lie. He put his champagne glass down on the mantel with a sharp click. I apologize, Ms. Vance, he said, turning to me, all business. I seem to have made a significant error in judgment in my professional and personal life. I'll be submitting my resignation, effective immediately. I can't work for a company associated with this. That won't be necessary, Julian, I said just as coolly. My family's choices are not a reflection on Terra Global, but I understand. Send me an email on Monday. We'll discuss it. He nodded, his face grim. He walked to the foyer, grabbed his coat. Claire was openly wailing. Julian, please, don't go. She ruined it. She ruins everything. Julian looked at her one last time, his face carved from ice. Don't ever call me again. He opened the front door and walked out. I was left in the foyer with my 3 stunned, silent family members. The only sound was Claire, who had slid down the wall and was now making dry, gasping sobs. He's gone, she whispered, looking at the open door. She turned her tear-streaked, makeup-smeared face to me. You ruined my life. I looked down at her, the anger finally draining away, leaving only a vast, cold emptiness. No, Claire, I said. You did. You did this with your jealousy, your greed, and your cruelty. You just never imagined there would be consequences. My mother, Margaret, finally spoke. She looked old. The fire was gone, leaving just a frail, bewildered woman. Scarlett, why? Her voice was a whisper. Why didn't you ever tell us? It was the ultimate question, wasn't it? Would it have mattered? I asked, genuinely curious. If I had told you, would you have loved me more, or would you have just asked for more money? You didn't love Scarlett the daughter. You were ashamed of me. You only wanted to use Ms. Vance the CEO. You just didn't know you already were. My father, Richard, just shook his head, speechless. He wouldn't meet my eyes. The shame rolling off him was a palpable thing. He, who was so worried about me embarrassing him. The payments will stop, I said quietly, the words landing with the finality of a gavel. The annuity, the trust that pays this mortgage, Claire's allowance, all of it, I'm done. I looked at the 3 of them, the family I had loved and sacrificed for, and kept afloat for my entire adult life. You wanted me gone. I said, you got it. I placed the holiday gift bag with the financial report on the hallway table. Then I took the 2 wrapped gifts, the watch and the book, and placed them on top of it. Merry Christmas. I turned and walked out the open door. I didn't look back. The Mercedes was waiting. My driver, seeing my face, simply opened the back door. I got in, and we drove away, leaving the house of my childhood and the family I no longer knew behind me. A few weeks later, I was back in my office. Julian Rutherford did, in fact, send me an email on Monday. We had a long, professional, and very candid video call. He apologized profusely for his lapse in judgment. I, in turn, told him I valued his talent and his honesty. I did not accept his resignation. Instead, I gave him a massive raise and a promotion, transferring him to lead our new, critically important Asia-Pacific division. He would be based in Singapore. As far from my family as he could possibly get, he accepted with gratitude. I got a call, forwarded from my legal team, from my parents' bank. They had missed their mortgage payment. The house was in foreclosure. I owned the note, of course, through a blind LLC. My lawyers were handling the proceedings. I heard from a mutual cousin that Claire's vlog was dead. Her car had been repossessed. She had been forced to get a job as a secretary at a local insurance office. There was no heartfelt reconciliation. The damage was too deep, the betrayal too absolute. My parents sent letters. At first, they were angry and demanding. Then, they were pleading. Finally, they were just apologetic. I didn't read them. I had my lawyer manage all communication. I did not leave them with nothing. I was not them. I arranged for a small, clean, 2-bedroom condo in a respectable retirement community to be purchased for them in their name. Bought and paid for, but with no cash allowance, no trust fund, no extras. It was more than they had offered me. They took it. The story ends 6 months later. I was on a rooftop terrace in Singapore, overlooking the glittering skyline, a skyline my firm had helped make more sustainable. I was toasting with Julian, celebrating the closure of a massive new deal. "To S. Vance," he said, raising his glass. "The boss." I smiled, raising mine. "To Scarlett," I corrected him, "and to knowing who your real family is." I looked out at the bright, beautiful, and unfamiliar city. I was not a nobody. I was not sad or bore open or pathetic. I was free.